Greetings and welcome to our daily walk through the scriptures for today, June the 13th. Your readings for today find you finishing out 1 Kings chapter 12 with verses 20 through 33 and reading 1 Kings chapter 13. And then you have Acts chapter 9, 26 through 43 and Psalm 132, 1 through 18 and also Proverbs 17 through 6. So again, we're going to continue to kind of jump around a little bit in some thoughts. And the first one is that when God divided the kingdom of Israel and Judah / Benjamin. For the record, even though it says that all that was left was Judah, the tribe of Benjamin was also kind of sucked into Judah, and that's because Benjamin was this little territory within the big territory of Judah, so they kind of got stuck by default. That's why there were 10 to Jeroboam, and why Rehoboam ended up with the 2 tribes. But Jeroboam recognized, Jeroboam, for all of his evil, was also pretty cunning and smart enough to recognize some things. One of them, he recognized that his hold on the kingdom would have been tenuous. And he wanted to do anything he could to make sure that people didn't turn to Jerusalem and try to follow Jerusalem. And that's why he built, that's an excuse he used to build the altar and create the 2 golden calves at Bethel. Now, Bethel was already a city of significance. It already had a number of things with it, but the town of Bethel became Jeroboam's kind of place, and it was where he instructed all of the northern tribes. So we got to also think about this. When the kingdom divided, Judah and Benjamin were to the south, and everybody else was kind of to the north and to the east. And so everybody over here was supposed to go to Bethel, which was not in Judah. So that's why Jeroboam did this. He didn't want people to go at any point to Jerusalem, which is where God said, this is where you go to worship. But Jeroboam wasn't doing this because he was trying to be noble. I mean, that's the whole reason he built golden calves. He wasn't doing it because he wanted to honor God. He was doing it for his own political reasons. But those political reasons are going to backfire on him. As a matter of fact, in chapter 13, when we see what happens and what the prophecy is with regards to this sacrificial, and we're gonna see Jeroboam meet a pretty nasty ending tomorrow's reading. But now I also want to jump over to Acts chapter 9 because this is something that I think is a good reminder for us. When we cross the line of faith, and we talked about this yesterday, we're going to be met with all sorts of different things. But we also have to remember that we don't live in a vacuum, meaning that reconciliation with people prior to our crossing the line of faith is a difficult journey and a difficult process. What I mean by that is that even when you cross the line of faith, you still have the consequences for the life that you chose before Christ. And as a result of that, there have been relationships damaged. There have been people that have seen you probably at your worst, therefore are going to be distrustful of any decision that you make. That was the dubiousness I talked about yesterday. And Paul faces this as well. Remember, Paul persecuted. Paul was there for the stoning of Stephen in Jerusalem. And so, he comes back to Jerusalem, and imagine that. None of the Christians want to see Paul. None of them want to hang out with Paul. None of them want to have anything to do with Paul. And Paul also is getting a message from God here. And this is important because God at that point is going to tell him, hey, listen, Paul, I didn't do this for you so that you could talk to fellow Jews. I did this because I have a greater mission for you, and it's one that I'm going to have you do. And so we have all of those things happening here, and this is going to be very important. But what this does allow, though, during this time is an opportunity for the church to catch its breath before it begins the next expansion. And so that is a time of peace where Saul created at one point great amounts of strife and chaos within Christian church. Now peace has come. And Paul is going to be, Paul/Saul is going to be a significant part of that. So as you read these things, look at that. And again, keep in mind of how God is using these things to carry out the mission that he told the disciples. Hey, for Jerusalem, then Judea and Samaria, and then the world. We're starting that. Right now, we're in the Judea-Samaria aspect of it. But not too long from now, it's going to get a lot bigger. Okay, we'll talk more tomorrow.